All right, I'm ready whenever.
All right, start us off. Even though you technically opened with "ready whenever."
Oh, Jesus. Well, hello, audience. Don't sleep on football viewing fans. Carter here.
And I was ready before he was.
Well, because I was getting ready for a little public service announcement. In terms of the weeks of this football season, we are getting very close to Thanksgiving. And with Thanksgiving comes the inevitable return of the free bird meme. For those who are not in the know, I am referring to the meme in which an animated turkey goes, "We are going back in time to the first Thanksgiving to get turkey off the menu." He then proceeds to look directly into the camera and go, "That's right, we are going back in time to the first Thanksgiving to get turkey off the menu." You see, the humor is that the writers of this film know that their premise is, as the kids say, bum ass dog water, and they are dressing it down in order to make it self referential and ironic. This is, in this humble journalist's opinion, a shitty meme, a butt ass meme, as the kids say. So, may I present some other Thanksgiving one liners,
Yes.
Thanksgiving zingers, and Thanksgiving cinematic references that are simply funnier than this? I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the classic planes, trains, and automobiles. The point when John Candy is literally holding an entire, or not John Candy, is no Nick, is it who's? I'm forgetting who's in that movie. Damn it, I'm breaking the bit already. When one of the protagonists remembers that he saw this person previously in a taxi, and the actor literally holds up a taxi cab door in the middle of a crowded airport. Several references from the iconic Wes Anderson film Fantastic Mr. Fox, at, such as the bit when George Clooney and Bill Murray continue to yell the word cuss at each other and growl as if they are actually animals. And of course, who can forget the classic film Geely, in which when two characters are describing oral sex, one of them describes it as, "It's turkey time, gobble gobble." Please consider using any of these. And yes, audience, I'm sorry that actually happens in that movie. It kind of ruined Ben Affleck's career for a while. Um, anyway, for future reference, if you are looking for a cinematic reference to the holiday of Thanksgiving, please refer to one of these more creative, less butt cheeks approaches. Thank you. But actually, this is Don't Sleep on Football. Carter here.
And I think that was probably one of my favorite. That might be my favorite bit of the season so far.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That
I
was
literally
solid.
thought about that as I was running. It was John Candy. For some reason,
You
for
doubted
some reason,
yourself.
I was. Yeah, I don't know why. Who else was I? Oh, I was thinking of no, because I was also thinking of Tommy Boy today for some
Oh,
reason,
hell
and I
yeah.
was getting those mixed up. Yeah, no, I literally thought I kept thinking I'm like, wait, is it Chris Farley? No, because I was, you know what? I was literally because for some reason during therapy, I always feel the need to like do an elaborate reference to something,
Oh, I thought
and
you were about to
I
say
was
bring up
referencing.
Chris Farley. And I was about to be
No,
like,
weird.
is
No,
that
unfortunately,
is that a
no.
Kevin
I was
therapist appointment? Because that's what it would seem like.
Jesus. I mean, it hasn't been much better than that. But no, I was trying to explain the plot of what's been happening in our tabletop campaign, and I described it as Kevin decided to do a Tommy Boy and just threaten people with dynamite, and that kind of just resolved the issue quietly. But I would say unremarkably, but threatening someone with dynamite is a pretty remarkable thing to do.
I did do that exclusively for the Tommy Boy bit. I had nothing, and then I think I watched Tommy Boy or like a bunch of clips of it. The like, because I watch it frequently enough that it's like I don't need to watch the entire movie every single time.
That's not a wild statement, but it is an odd statement.
It is a thing. It doesn't make it makes sense for modern day too, and it does not make sense for like 10 years ago, where it's just like, what do you mean you just watch clips of movies? But
Oh, yeah, that's true. God, that's so
I too.
weird to think like we're the first generation who can just be like, I want to watch that funny bit from a movie I like.
I think
Oh, that's so. I've never thought about that. That's
the
so weird.
the biggest thing is, um, as much as I love Naruto, I've only watched the
Mhm,
entire series because it is a hefty series, like
mhm.
2 3 times. However, a couple of like specific arcs and specific fights I've watched dozens of times.
No, I totally get that. There's plenty of things in my
Yeah,
repertoire that are
but
like that.
once again, just think about it like arguing about maybe 10 years ago is like that beginning threshold of like YouTube finally becoming big enough that you can kind of get away with watching clips and stuff.
Right. When they've worked out a silent piece with copyright holders where it's like, well,
Yeah.
there can be clips on here. Um, but
Anyway,
incidentally, that whole thing with the dynamite, you saying you have nothing, it was partially inspired by a different tabletop campaign I was in, and the solution there was beer pong, like a beer pong for the deeds sort of situation. So I thought,
that's
oh, we're gonna do
hilarious.
some '80s, yeah, we're gonna do some '80s grab ass dude bro, like old school, like frat boy sort of solution to this. You went in a different '80s direction, and I have to say I respect it. It's just not
That's
what I
all.
thought we were gonna be doing.
Oh man, you should have. You could have
I mean,
stopped me.
I could have railroaded you to that, but I was like, I kind of want to see where this goes. I'm just gonna let Kevin play this out as he chooses to.
Yeah, and for those of you playing along at home, because might as well jump on this because not a crazy week. Um, it's basically um, Chris Farley's character in Tommy Boy.
Hmm.
Tommy, obviously, is trying to save his dad's
The titular
company,
role.
going like for brake pads and auto parts and stuff. And he's going on a tour of the area and a couple states surrounding, like kind of like the Great Lakes region esque. And
Yeah,
they,
they're like Great Lakes based, and they're trying to save the company by going on a road trip with his
yeah,
kind of a brother who he doesn't really have a relationship with.
no, David Spade's character is like his dad's former assistant. Um,
Oh, I thought they were brothers.
no,
God, I'm out
he
of the
was
loop.
technically brothers with Rob Lowe's character because at the beginning of the movie, his dad gets remarried,
Okay.
and turns out, I mean, it's a fucking 20. I think it actually came out in '95, so it's like a 30-year-old movie. So I'm not worried about spoiling things about that. Um, but you, but the woman she marries is a con artist, and the dude who is like, "Oh, this is your new stepbrother now." Rob Lowe's character is actually her lover and stuff, and that was like a very
God, this
like
movie
that
does
was a
go places.
yeah, it goes places, and they were selling it to like the biggest company like in the area, like the Walmart equivalent and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
They're trying to save, yeah, they're trying to avoid Walmartification
yeah,
is kind of like the core plot.
and earlier in the movie, he goes into a bank, and he like needed something. He's like, "Can I have your attention, please?" And everybody acts like he's about to start robbing the place, and um, he was like, "All right, I have an idea of like how to save it," and he saves it by tying a bunch of road flares to himself and going up to like getting like a news crew involved and forcing the signing like this crazy sale to his dad's company of like auto parts and like buying the stuff, saving the town slash all the jobs in the factory in a completely asinine way. And he's just like, I'm kidding. It's just road flares. I just did that to get the news. Like,
Classic.
and I was just
Yes.
like, yeah, this will work. I'm just gonna Tommy Boy my way through this.
I mean, again, I respect it, and I don't know why in my head you would associate, let's go save the town kind of gay bar with like we got to save the frat shenanigans. But honestly, it ended up working out. It ended up with a sweet ending where like the sort of new snooty patrons realize they have more in common with the riffraff than they thought, and now
Yeah,
everyone's hanging out. Also, there's like a whole actual plot about like, an ancestral or blacksmith order like grappling with whether or not like their tradition is in the place or their people and like that whole thing. But that's like that's the grim dark stuff. We're here for you play D&D for like the fun grab ass shenanigans.
yeah.
Anyway,
I
I'm sorry, what were you
I
gonna
was
say?
say I lost 100% of the plot before I decided, and then I decided, and then you mentioned the spar, and I was just like, I'm gonna save it.
Yeah, I put that aside because I'm like, well, this is gonna be kind of. I don't want this whole quest to be a bummer. Something fun has to happen here. So no matter what happens, at least he did a little good.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you're wondering why we can ramble about that inanely for like a good 15 minutes, it's because this was a weird. I guess not weird week. It was actually a
Yeah,
very normal
weird,
week in terms of all the results were kind of like, oh
predictable
yeah,
adjacent.
that's a good way of putting it. Because there's a couple where you raise your eyebrow, but then you actually look at like what happened and you're like, no, that's a believable result.
I'm just like going back in my head. I'm thinking in terms of like, okay, what if I like if I were to attempt to predict these games before they
Mhm.
happened, I probably would have only gotten max 3 wrong, and that is
Mhm.
because I refused to uh, bet on the Eagles losing, which happened.
Mhm.
I would have probably expected a little bit more out of Danny Dimes over the Chiefs, and
Mhm.
I would have probably picked the Bills over the Texans, just offensive quality of the Texans versus defensive quality of the Bills. It would
Right.
have, like, that is a little bit more in the Bills' favor than the Bills' offense versus the Texans' defense.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, but even that result, I'm like, I've seen the Bills play the Texans enough to know this defense just has their number. It's only a little
Yeah,
shocking because you're like, they really lost to Davis Mills.
that's
Like,
the shocking
the
part. It's the Davis Mills involvement. It's not the
right, that's the wild card where I'm like, maybe the Bills can win this time, and
if it
evidently not.
if it was CJ, I would have probably picked the Texans. But
Because this is basically the score that happened last time they played
yeah,
with basically the exact same teams. But yeah, even just going through it, it's like, yeah, the Patriots win a close one to the Bengals. Okay.
yeah,
The Lions, you're like, oh, that's weird it went to overtime, but okay. The Packers beat up the Vikings. Okay. You know,
Ravens beat the
Chiefs,
Jets.
Colts, yeah. Browns beating Raiders, that's not abnormal. Like, even
Yeah,
the Cowboys beating the Eagles, it's like, well, I don't know. The Cowboys almost beat them last time. It's just, when
it
it's only shocking when you look at the context of the Eagles had a 21-point lead.
yeah, and they just decided to stop scoring. But that's beside the
Right.
point. Um,
Yeah. Meanwhile, it's like, oh, Bryce Young had his bad game this week, so they lost to the 49ers. Like, the most shocking result is probably the 34-7 to the Buccaneers, and that's more just
they
the
got
nature
slaughtered.
of the Buccaneers are very hurt and they lost control of the
Yeah,
game early.
I think if they had like, I think if they were fully staffed with like
Hmm.
Mike Evans and stuff, and Baker, not Teddy Bridgewater,
Hmm.
or well, they had Baker for a little bit, but they ended with Bridgewater and stuff. I
Right.
think I think I would have been like, all right, yeah, like I could see this happen, but they also had Sean Tucker and not Bucky,
Bucky yet.
so it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
eh.
Well, I will say, like, we've been waiting for Bucky Irvin to come back. There was some weird discussion on the broadcast about like what his situation is. The Sunday night, or yeah, the Sunday night crew.
Oh my god,
One of them just had a really weird comment that's like, I'll explain it off mic, and we still
was it
haven't really got an
Collinsworth?
explanation of what they meant. No, no, it was like like it was in the office team, like the guys who are all like
Okay.
the guys who do the halftime punditry and
Oh
like
yeah, I remember.
actually
Yeah, no, no,
come to
no.
think of
You're
it, Collinsworth might have said something about it too.
Collinsworth is a weird dude, but uh,
I've come to love him. He just
I
every now and
hate
then
him.
he just says something really.
I
Maybe it's because I've been so tired of dealing with Romo, because the Bills always get the 4 o'clock slot now.
Yeah,
But
Romo. I tolerate Romo. I actually really like the Thursday night crew. Um, but Collinsworth, like, I didn't like him, and then the Eagles beat the Patriots, and listening to him that entire game just glaze Tom Brady is it's like Tom Brady just got strip sacked by Brandon Graham, and it's just like, but this could be a death penalty for any other team, but it's Tom Brady. He's in a league of his own, like that kind of talk. afterward.
Right.
Definitely not what he
He,
said.
he
Almost
does have the
certainly.
problem of like, yeah, he does have the problem of like gassing
He
up stars a little too much at
he
times, particularly
fanboys the crowd
quarterbacks.
favorite, or not the crowd favorite, like the company favorite.
Right. And
But
sometimes that can be fun, but other times it gets a bit grating, especially when they're losing. Like
do
I will
we?
say, there are two Josh Allen moments I really love from him. One was it was early, like one of these random years where the Bills started off hot,
Mhm.
and he's like, I don't know, it's early. There's a lot of people in the MVP race. Josh scores another rushing touchdown. Okay, he's the MVP. Or his broadcast when that weird play last year in the snow where Amari Cooper pitches it back to Josh,
Oh
and he just
yeah,
starts going, no, no.
yeah.
Um,
Do
he
we
has his moments.
do we break the fourth wall on when we're recording and stuff?
Yeah, well, I think we've already done that once, where we kind of have a backlog of episodes we need to cover, guys. Partially because the Thanksgiving season always gets jammed up because Kevin comes back, we don't have a recording set up, but also Kevin was sick for a little bit,
I was
so that
sick like
added an
the
extra week.
2 week, like the week before, and we were like, it was just a rough time. Anyway, him during the Texans Chiefs games on December 7th
Hmm.
was insane. It was like you listening to him go like, Patrick Mahomes is watching this, and he's going, yeah, I could do that. I could do that better. And then whoever he's announcing with is just like, anyway, the Texans are on third down.
Mike Tirico.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's
it's just
interesting
like
because it's like,
it was like some games he's like not bad, but it's like all right, whatever. Like I still hate you. That game when Patrick Mahomes is involved, what did I say? I said something about why it's hard to understand the commentary with um, Collinsworth having Mahomes' dick in his mouth the entire time.
all right, well, we don't have to be gross about it.
I'm gonna be gross about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I excuse that one a little bit because, like, that was like a traumatic game for the Chiefs in terms of like, oh, this actually might be the end of an era. But like, yeah, when it works because it's like,
But it's
the
gotta
story
have a
of the
level of
season.
like
I get it. I don't know.
like
Again,
there.
I come from the place of like I'm stuck with Tony Romo so much now that like God, even just getting the Greg Olson for the Bengals game was like finally oxygen.
I do like Greg Olson.
God, like I've
Uh,
been waterboarded for like 3 straight weeks.
yeah, I get a lot of Tom Brady games, and honestly, I don't hate it. He's definitely improved from when he first started.
Right.
But
I
like,
think he's
there's
learned. He just
times he gets a little weird, but it's just like, all right, like he dials it
he's
back.
picking and choosing his battles more.
Yeah,
Like he's realized like I'm not a guy who can like talk over every single play. I just got to pick and choose like the 3 or 4 moments where I see an interesting play and like again, as a player, I have something interesting to add here.
yeah. No, he's gotten better with his antidotes. Antidotes?
I never know how to say that word.
Um,
You're barking up the wrong tree on that one.
and it's just like one of those like it's like all right, like a little weird, but you dialed it back. And then there's times when it's just like he's talking about like when he hears like certain calls and stuff being like because the mics pick it up, and it's just like when you hear this, you know something's gonna happen, and it's just like X is gonna happen. It's just like all right, like yes, like bring that into the room, like the I'm a former player. If I'm hearing like someone yell Mike, this is exactly what I would be looking at, and like
Hmm.
as a player, and it's just like that. I like, I love that kind of commentary, but he gets a little weird, and I still hate Collinsworth.
Oh, fair enough.
Give
But
I want
shall we dive into? Oh, go ahead.
honestly, I want every commentary team, kind of like in the world of wrestling, where it's gonna be like there's going to be your play-by-play guy who is somebody who's like I am a reporter. I'm like as I mean in wrestling it's obviously not going to be unbiased because they have to sell who's a good guy and who's a bad guy and stuff. But it's like
Mhm.
someone who's just like all right, CJ Stroud threw it 17 yards to Nico Collins, for example. Just something like simple like that. And
Mhm.
then I want the guy he's with to be like a former player and just be like, dude, like that was a picture perfect pass. Like talking about like his technique and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Or just being like, if it's like a foreign quarterback, it's like I would have looked at across the field at like Woody Marks and been like, oh, I would have thought he would have had a better option. Like things like I can legitimately weigh into this conversation
Right.
from
Yeah, I
like
guess that gets to a
like a
philosophic
different
debate
like
about commentary.
behind the scenes point of view.
Right. And I guess like each person brings his own thing, but
Yeah.
like yeah, I like in my head I'm like the colorful commentator like it really just has to be like well, I guess ideally it's kind of like what we've said our mission statement for this is and bring like a slightly elevated water cooler talk where
Hmm.
it's like don't get so technical that it becomes incomprehensible. Don't like your job should be give the audience just enough like insider information that they feel smarter and feel like they can actually have like conversations about the sport
Yeah.
without getting bogged down in jargon or getting bogged down in generalizations. I do think early Tom Brady was really stuck in that generalization thing where he's just
Yeah.
literally like being like, here's what happened on this play.
Yeah. He
Like he
was
was literally just
just
repeating what
pointlessly
happened.
factual.
Yeah, like a bad therapist just volleying stuff back to you
Yeah.
without adding or asking questions or pressing for introspection. Anyway, should we just do this damn week?
Yeah, I guess so.
All
We've
right.
already spent
First,
20 minutes
yeah, I
not
was gonna
talking
say,
about it. I mean, there's not a lot.
Jesus. Anyway, I mean, we could talk about Fox lore. No, no, no.
No.
So feisty Tennessee versus Seattle. I'm glad you brought up this game because,
It
again, like
was
I was talking last week about like Tennessee being like, oh, we might draft a quarterback, and I'm like, this is an example of why that's a terrible
yeah,
idea.
this I mean, Cam Ward, I'm not going to say he had the world's best numbers, 28 for 42. 256
Mhm.
and a touchdown though, pretty damn good. Um
Right.
and he also was the top rusher of 6 carries for 37 yards, which is I would say a pretty solid stat line and a touchdown.
Right. I think
Almost
when we're talking about
passed
yeah,
over
when
that
we're
one.
talking about like when we're talking about bad teams and evaluating like what the problem is, when your quarterback is your lead rusher, that suggests a bigger like systematic
Yeah.
problem than oh, the
Yeah.
quarterback, this bum ass quarterback. Um
Yeah, he's in
like
front of Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears on it, and Julius Chestnut, whoever that is. But
yes. Jesus. Yeah, that's a name. But yeah, no, it really is, especially in the case of Cam Ward, who's like a guy you're not designing runs for. It's one thing when like there would be a period where Lamar Jackson would have the most rushing yards or Josh Allen where it's like, all right, well they're getting 4 or 5 plays a game where they're having like the plays literally you are going to run here.
yeah,
When it's like Herbert, Cam Ward, like there's this like group of quarterback. I'd even put Patrick Mahomes there. This group of quarterbacks who are athletic and capable of running, but that's not one of their defining traits. That's not how they like separate themselves. And they're leading their team in rushing. That suggests something's gone very wrong.
yeah.
In general, like
I think.
what
Oh no, continue. I was.
oh, I was just going to say, like what interests me about this game is again, it's like I believe if I'm remembering the full play-by-play correctly, yes, I believe that by the third quarter, the Seahawks were up by the end of the third quarter, they were up 30-10. The Titans score a touchdown late in the third,
Yeah,
and then it's a like they keep it feisty. They basically the fourth quarter was 4 drives basically. Turnover on downs by the Seahawks, turnover on downs by the Titans, punt, touchdown by the Titans, end of game. If they're able to convert that turnover on downs, this is a football game. They get the
yeah,
lead. And I do think that is why I like the archetype of a Cam Ward type of like a gunslinger type who's able to push the ball downfield and like kind of do it quickly. You're never fully out of it. Again,
no,
if you can't have one of the 5 guys, like one of the big wigs, this is one of the archetypes of quarterbacks I like. Good vibes, big arm, sort of can play like kind of do a pace attack and kind of
yeah,
just keep pushing the ball in like 20-yard chunks to keep you in the game.
Um, I think a lot of Cam Ward's biggest problems this season aren't exactly
Mhm.
Cam Ward problems.
I agree.
Where I think he's proving they do not need to waste their earliest pick on a quarterback. I think he's
I think that'd be very
I,
stupid.
I think it'd be incredibly dumb. Um, I, but it's just like you're he's doing his best with a lot of like people that would be like third, if not later, in the depth charts, with
Hmm.
like one or two exceptions. Um, I think he's working pretty well with what he has.
Hmm.
Um, I think logically they should take the best receiver or running back in the next draft because it's also not like the world's best quarterback draft either. But taking
Right. I've
those,
only just started to look at all that.
yeah, I think they should go early for like weapons for him. But I also like what he's been putting up with AMR. He's like all right, but he's still got like
Hmm.
the rookie. I'm on the garbage team vibes.
Right.
So he's not gonna like he's doing with what he can, but he's like we're we're held together by thumbtacks and duct tape. But he also has he's been using DK or yeah like DK, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
He's been using him more and more as it goes on. Another rookie, but like they seem to be having a lot better of chemistry between the two of them, and he's been proving to be like a very solid um like
You
offensive
want to know
member
something
for them.
crazy?
Hmm.
He actually leads the league in total all-purpose yards because they count kickoff yards.
Oh yeah, and he made a couple
Isn't
returns.
that nuts? It's I don't know. It's so funny the fantasy footballification of everything, where it's like no one will ever give him credit for how good he is because they don't count kickoff yards in most leagues.
Yeah,
But yeah, but to your point, that's kind of what I want to see from like a young rookie quarterback, elevating guys who we didn't think could be elevated.
yeah.
And in general, like again, I maintain like as much of a bummer as I have to imagine it is to be a Tennessee fan and just losing game after game. It's like these are the games you want to see of like
There's
clearly there's
hope.
signs of life.
Yeah,
Yeah, this team hasn't quit yet. It would be so easy to kind of like this is a classic like, the Seahawks are playing for the first seed. Like I know nominally this is a trap game, but it would have been easy. I think honestly that's one of the big signs of like a team with hope versus a team who doesn't have hope. Where a
yeah.
trap game can actually be a trap game where you're like, "Oh, this team has fight. They want to play spoiler. They want to prove like, that they can put up a fight for lack of a better word."
Yeah, give me 1 second. I was just trying to look at something and I accidentally hit back. So it's like, yes, they've been like washed out frequently,
Yeah.
but they're still scoring some points on some of like the stronger teams, and it really only has gone up for them. Like they, the first 3 weeks they got 12, 19, and 20 points, and it's like, all right.
Hmm.
And then they got the goose egg against the Texans after that was a bloodbath game that the Texans desperately needed at the time.
Yeah, the
Um,
Texans, we can excuse that one. The Texans might just be a bit of a buzzsaw.
but got then they got their first win, and then it was just like, all right, we're gonna hover around like getting a couple of scores in each game, but like the other team will win, but we're not gonna be like ruled out of it. For example, their game with the Raiders, they lost 20-10,
Hmm.
but they didn't score until literally the end of the third quarter, but they brought it back up to 10, and it's like, all right, if you have somebody that can like you get that enhancement talent that's like like a Bijan Robinson or like a JSN where it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna like this guy can like I can really just like turn up the gas a little bit, and
Hmm.
then second and third rounds enhance your linemen on like your linemen, offensive linemen and defensive backs. You're you're gonna be sitting a lot pretty quicker than expected because
Right.
you don't need to worry about a quarterback, and if you don't need to worry about a quarterback and you have a very early pick, that's easy draft
It
capital.
really is, yeah, it's easy money because you either get the best skill position player that there is because someone's going to, like,
Someone's
depending on who gets the first overall pick, someone's going to panic and trade up for that first pick, or you just take whoever the best available is. And yeah, I think they're playing with house money. Again, they're playing with house money right now. If you told me they're a sleeper team to get a wild card spot next year, despite only having 2 wins this year, I would believe that. Wait, do they have 1 or 2 wins at this point? They
uh
get another win?
yeah. So as of the week that we are talking about recording wise, they are at one IRL. They have achieved their second win.
Yes, I see. But yeah, it's like despite being effectively one of the worst 2 or 3 teams in the league 2 years in a row, I'm like, I can easily. They have a good defensive line, they have a good quarterback, and usually when you have those two things, the other things are figure outable, much easier to figure out. Um, but yeah, honestly, I don't know. I just needed one game like this, a reassuring game of like. Again, there were a lot of games like this with Josh Allen where it's like, well, we were losing a lot of games in his first season, but it's like 1 or 2 plays go differently and we can win, and that's what I want to see from
Yeah,
like,
and it's
I don't know.
also
There's so much inks. Oh, go ahead.
it's not a game against like the Texans or Bill. Like it is a game against like the Seahawks. It's not like the Vikings, the Steelers, like the
Hmm.
Jaguars, where they're like kind of all over the place this season. Of like sometimes I'm really good, and it's like other times I'm not. It's like they're against one of the biggest juggernauts when they put this show on,
Right. Exactly.
and it's like okay, that's kind of like that's a little bit of a statement thing, and I'll talk about it a little bit more later. But like, it's the same situation. It's a very similar situation with the Giants.
Hmm. Yes. I like. Yeah. It's when I want it, what I want to see from a young quarterback more than anything else is hope. Like I do think like we talk so much about nature versus nurture with quarterbacks and like
Hmm.
young quarterbacks getting put into crappy situations, and I'm like, I really do think like wholly independent of your circumstance, I just need to see enough raw potential that I can believe in you. Where it's like, even if, hell, I'd even argue Sam Darnold, like in his first year was rough. He had a lot of bad games, but he also had enough where I'm like, okay, it's probably not happening on the Jets, but it'll happen somewhere.
Yeah,
Like,
I
I think that's a lot of these like sort of this era of like second chance quarterbacks. Baker, Geno, well, not Geno this year, but Sam
no
Darnold.
Gino this year's
Like,
the now.
I just need to see enough to have hope.
Yeah. Um.
Um, shall we move on?
Yeah. Next point. Uh.
Texans put stirrup to hide because I thought that was a funny cowboy thing, and it's a way
It's a
of saying
solid
they
Cowboy
kind of,
thing.
yeah. Despite the score, it's weird because compared
It
to
it
I'm
felt
curious what you think.
it felt weird because it was Davis Mills, who is not the world's best quarterback, and also, as you know, we're big CJ Stroud fans in this house.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
but it didn't feel like a complete like slaughter from the Texans. But I don't I think the term I want to use is like it almost felt like kid gloves ish, if that makes sense. I don't.
I'm trying to think of, and again, like I'm a fan of the Bills, so I can't think. Or well, I'm nominally a fan of the Bills. I can't think objectively about this, but it's a very similar score and circumstance to last year. Whereas last year, I felt like they had no chance to win that game. The false hope they gave us at the end was fool's gold. This game, I genuinely, despite Josh Allen getting sacked
Yeah,
for 70 yards, the most sacks he's ever taken in his career, truly an embarrassing performance from the offensive line. At some point, they just had to pull the right tackle Spencer Brown because it was very clear he was injured.
yeah.
Um, despite all of it, I felt like they should win. There were multiple times where the Bills
It's
had the lead, and you're like, all right, well, let's turn it on and like wrap this up because it's Davis Mills, and in spite of how
I
bad the entire offense is playing, we should be able to fart out like 20 points.
I think that is the biggest factor of um it's like it is Davis Mills because if you look at like the offensive stats, um Bills were like favored in every single category, but not like
Mm,
substantially. Like they only got 35 more rushing yards, 30 exactly more passing yards. Um their average yards per play was only point 0.2 more, but then let's get into like the defensive stats were what's like killing them. Like yes, the Texans punted it 6 times because they did not feel confident that they can go for it, but they went 1 for 1 on fourth down and 2 for 12 on third or on third down.
right.
Which the Bills were rebutted with 5 out of 16 on third and 3 out of 5 on fourth, which is like, all right, those are not very efficient on third, but pretty efficient on fourth. I would say for fourth down, just based off of how often punts happen and stuff, you're lucky if you get like 500. You hit around 500 for fourth down efficiency.
Hmm.
But it's the 0 sacks for the Texans, 8 sacks for on Josh
Right.
Allen. It's the no fumbles versus 1 fumble. The 0 interceptions thrown to the 2 thrown. Um,
Right.
even the tackle statistic. The Bills made 23 tackles. The
Right.
the
It
Texans
is.
made 39. They almost doubled them. Texans
Jesus.
defense is insane.
Well, what's striking about the Texans defense, and I felt this last year, in the analytics back it up because when you look at the percentage of blitz defenses that blitz and defenses who disguise coverages, the Texans are at the bottom of both of those lists. They truly are like the most set and forget it defense in terms of we are going to play the way we want to play. We are going to rush for. We're going to have everyone else back, and we're going to dare you to beat us. They very much, it's the closest I felt to watching the Legion of Boom. Not necessarily in how the team's designed. This team is way more front loaded in
Yeah.
terms of we're building around the defensive line and everything else expands from that as opposed to building from the defensive backfield and moving down. But they subscribe to the same kind of philosophy of we are just going to fucking beat your ass. Like we are going to out physical you. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, every now and then that's going to result in a pretty difficult penalty. But what are they going to do? Call penalties on us every single play? We're just going to manhandle you.
Yeah.
And it really is striking. The two Texans games, despite this era of like weird Bills football where it's like you move off Diggs, you kind of give up on the passing game, and you really just do not have the wide receiver core you need to be a serious NFL offense. It's like for the most part, you're able to sort of ignore that because the running game is good enough and Josh Allen isn't capable enough to make
Mm-hmm.
plays. But these two games, the Texans games in particular, I have never seen a team show so much open contempt for another serious, in terms of like serious team versus serious team. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about like, I'm not talking about like the Browns playing like the higher end Seahawks team or
Yeah.
the higher end, yeah, the higher end Seahawks teams, the higher end 49ers teams. Like, when it's just a bad team versus a good team. In terms of two nominally good teams, I've never seen a defense show so much open contempt
Mm-hmm.
for what they're up against. It, one of the Josh Allen interceptions, they try to do a bootleg play fake. They don't bite for it at all, and Josh tries to throw it in there, and it's like, well, yeah, but they didn't bite for
They didn't go
they didn't
for
bite for the fake. There's no
like
room.
yeah. Now I think
I
also
think one of the well, I will say one last note on
mm-hmm.
that line is, again, it was 4th and 1. The Bills actually had a successful hook and ladder. I believe it was 4th and 17. They actually pulled it off, but then turned the ball over in the red zone because on 4th and 1, when they could have just sneaked it through, Deion Dawkins false starts because he's so like punch drunk at that point.
Yeah.
Like you have to move to be, you're like I have to move now or I'm gonna get beaten.
Yeah. I think it's also like I think the biggest thing for the Texans specifically was a few years ago when they got the second pick, they traded to get the third, and they went back to back CJ and Will Anderson Jr., who like
which at the
you
time
want,
was widely criticized. And I'm
yeah.
like, you know what? I'll eat crow on that.
I mean, I've been a fan of it the entire time. I won't deny that. But it's just
Well,
like,
I was a fan of Stroud. I just thought
oh
the
yeah,
process of getting both of those guys was odd.
I thought it was a little much, but also like I liked it because it's just like, all right, you have two people you're gonna completely rebuild your team around, and while they still are missing like some people that it's just like, oh yeah, we need somebody that can really step up here and stuff,
Hmm.
but like they're holding so well at their own positions, and like they've built their defense to be this dominant factor that like Will Anderson Jr. is now like arguably one of the most insane people on defense in a good way.
Right. Yeah, I realize more and more that that was the for a franchise that's really lacked a Jesus, sorry again. Don't chug a liquid death in one gulp. Um, for a franchise that has really lacked an identity, holy moly.
You good there?
I'll retake that. For a franchise that has lacked an identity for so long. See, this is why we edit Disney Desk. These parts get cut out.
No, that's less real.
All right. Wait, all right, fucking what's his name from Rent? From now on, I shoot without a script. But God, I fucking hate. No, we'll do that when we inevitably get around to the explain musicals thing. Um, but anyway, for a franchise that has lacked an identity since it was founded, like you really did need to kind of get both of them as like a statement of principle. And again, I'm like this. There's going to be a very messy discussion for Defensive Player of the Year this year because Miles Garrett is going to be on a awful team and break the sack record.
Yeah.
I'm like, just showed the highlights of this game that literally from play one, even when they were down, it felt like the Texans were dominating this game because I've never seen Josh Allen look this like panicked or this like unsure about what he was looking at.
Yeah, no. Like it was just a lot of defensive threats.
Right. Just true manhandling. It's the most manhandling game I've seen in a long time, and unfortunately, it was against my team. But shall we move on to Don't Sleep On? The
I think
Don't
so.
Sleep On games. Yours is Jacksonville, Arizona, a very fun one. The Jaguars end up winning the game 27-24, an overtime game. Uh, the Cardinals managed to march the ball downfield and kick a field goal right before time expires, and then a back and forth in overtime leads to a 52-yard field goal. Field goals win games.
Yes, I mean
I forgot
obviously
how
that
crazy this game was.
it was it was insane. Um, Cam Little should at least have that like 70-yard record from preseason, but preseason doesn't count. Um, so little
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of those records that it's just like I get you like you did in the preseason, but like that's not like that's one of the stats that it's like you're not like going against defenses where they're gonna just block this in the regular season. They're gonna do like exactly what they did. So it's like it should like be because there's like no like in my opinion
Mhm.
there's no factor of being against like the first strings of whatever play.
Mhm.
I think it should have counted as like the legitimate record. Anyway, he got it like this. He broke it this season anyway, so it's not like the end of the world.
That's kind of
Um,
awesome that he did it twice. He's like, you know what? Fuck
he
you.
didn't get 70 the second time, but he did get a what was it like 68, like 67 or 8, couple yards shy. Um, but this game was like I think this was kind of like not a cleanup game for the Jaguars, kind of asserting themselves because Trevor Lawrence threw 3 interceptions throughout that game,
It is kind of well. I was going to say one of
and
my
one
big
was a
takeaways is this is one of the ultimate Trevor Lawrence games in terms of any throw can either be this beautiful dime where you're like, yes, this is exactly what we were promised, or then you're like, is this guy a fucking idiot?
yeah,
What was that throw?
just outright throws to the other team for pick sixes. Um, it had like they had a very slow and steady approach, which like excuse me, in like each quarter it was like 7-3, 7-7, and then 3 in overtime. Like it's like, all right, you're proving you can make it down the field, but you're also not doing enough to like hold it back this team. And I think this was the nail in the coffin for the Cardinal season, where
Yes. Well,
this didn't eliminate them. They did not get eliminated
mhm.
yet from this game, but it was like, it's like, all right, you went from like, yeah, we could have a kind of a fun chance. While there are some good teams, like we could really do stuff, and it's just like, oh no, we are done.
Yes. Well, you know what's striking? I think, well, because not only is the Cardinal season done, they're 3-8. This was kind of a must-win game to at least keep the illusion of hope alive.
Yeah,
Like, be like, we are fighting for something here. And then you proceed to blow it in overtime, despite the other team giving you the ball 3 times. But I think what's really damning in terms of not just is this Cardinals season over, but like this era of Cardinals football needs to change is Jacoby Brissett just looks so much better than Kyler Murray has at any
yeah.
point this year. Like,
Kyler,
again,
I don't want to
not
say
the
he's like
sexiest stats.
been a bust, but Kyler has just been like not holding his own comparatively. So
Honestly,
like,
I've really come to think and ponder on because 90% of my day is just sitting around and pondering. I've really come to pause and reflect on like what classifies a bust. You know what it was? It was Jadeveon Clowney who okay, he was never a big sack guy. He was never like a 10 sack a year guy. He was
yeah,
never that reliable pass rushing threat. But he's one of the best run defenders you can get on a defensive line. He's been second team All Pro multiple times. And despite not staying on his original team, he's been, the Texans, he's been valued enough by enough teams that he's consistently getting contracts to like be an
yeah,
important role player. And I'm like, is that a bust? Like, it was a discussion someone had of like, it was also a discussion someone had of like, yes, no one would ever say Tyler Lockett was a great wide receiver. They would say he's a good wide receiver. But considering how much of a crapshoot the draft is, if you knew someone you were drafting would be Tyler Lockett levels, would you
you.
talk yourself into drafting him top 15? Just with the
Ooh,
with the assurance, not the gamble, because
like
even the safest
Tyler
draft pick is a
Lockett
gamble.
levels as a guarantee.
Yes, that's the thing. You
As
roll the dice and say maybe the guy we're drafting the top 15 will be better, but maybe he'll have injuries. Maybe he'll have character problems we didn't know. Maybe he just won't fit in this offense we're creating.
I,
Or do you get I know this guy's going to get like 70 catches a year and be fringe 1,000 yards every year and he'll make plays on third down.
honestly,
And that's kind of
I
where
would
I'm at.
probably go for it.
Right. And that's kind of the thing with like when we're talking about Kyler Murray, where I'm like, this guy is objectively talented. He's physically gifted, but it's like it's either a lack of fit with the offense, a lack of like introspection. I will say it is very damning how many people in the Cardinals sort of locker room, not just the coaches, but the players, because there was a whole litigation about him playing Call of Duty too much and it was a little
Yeah,
like infantilizing. And naturally it's like we try to side with the players. But the fact that we have so many Cardinals players coming out and being complimentary to Jacoby Brissett, specifically his preparation, like talking to receivers, suggesting route packages, I'm like, hmm,
I think.
hmm.
Yeah, I think it's telling on Kyler behind the scenes more than it is up front, and it's like we can't forget about like his ACL stuff and his injury proneness, which
Hmm.
also being injury prone feels like a very weird thing to talk about because it's like, yes, you play this position that just gets absolutely bullied frequently, so it's
Right.
like, how is it in you're not more injury prone than other people, but you're kind of just like in this weird pocket of lack of defense.
Right. It's tricky because it's like it's like he is a much better quarterback than the vast majority of quarterbacks in the NFL. We've seen a lot of bad quarterback play this year. But
Yeah.
it's just the little things. It's like the accusations of work ethic. It's that every November he has like nagging ankle or knee or back or whatever injuries that slow him down. It's the fact that this team always seems to fall off a cliff at the worst possible moment. It's the fact that he's literally been to one playoff game where he looked like he was crashing out halfway through the game. Um, and it's like he will, again, when we talk about the importance of this game, is I really do think it signified, like, I do think the organization just kind of has to have a look in the mirror and be like, this team feel like, if we can at least have a functioning offense with like a career journeyman in Jacoby Brissett, what does that say about our like relationship with Kyler Murray? And I'm like, Kyler Murray will almost certainly go somewhere else
Hmm.
and probably be pretty decent. He will always be like 12th to 15th range. And it's like, okay, that's horrifically disappointing for a Cardinals team who drafted a quarterback in Josh Rosen and then immediately booted his ass to draft this guy first overall.
Yeah.
And it's pretty disappointing in the grander story of Kyler Murray, arguably one of the most successful quarterbacks in the history of Texas football. A man who lost like 2 games from high level high school through like top end NCAA football. But like, yeah, that's the thing about the draft. It's like there's a million little things that contribute to how each player comes out, and like the fact that he's an okay quarterback is probably still in the higher end of turnouts. And that's like more of a philosophical.
Yeah.
And like I said, this week was kind of a weird week, so it
It's
engendered more like philosophic debates about the nature of the sport than like individual results,
yeah.
if that makes sense. But my game was Chicago at Pittsburgh. The Chicago Bears win another exciting game, 31-28. What's funny is, despite the score, like the Steelers score with about 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It feels like if they can get the ball back, they get it. They actually did an okay-ish job stopping the Bears' run, but for me, one, it was just like another solid, no frills, mean potatoes game by
Yeah.
Caleb Williams. He throws the 3 touchdowns. He kind of dinks and dunks it about 7 yards of throw. For me, it's more of like a kind of a damning indictment again of the Steelers franchise and where it's at right now. Aaron Rodgers ends up getting knocked out of this game due to he doesn't end up playing in this
Yeah,
game
he
due
did
to a
not play.
wrist injury. But also, a weird thing about the Bears right now is they are missing their top 3 linebacker. Literally, their first 3 people in the depth chart for linebacker are out. So, on paper, this should have been like okay, this is a get right game for the Steelers. We're starting to sort of teeter out of control here.
Yeah.
Instead, they're not really able to do it. They don't really attack the middle of the field. They run okay. Like,
We're barely over
outside.
500. We gotta like be like comfortably over 500 so we could end at 500.
Right. If you take one big run from Kenneth Gainwell out, they kind of just run adequate, not as good as you would think for a team going up against a team with no linebackers. They don't really push the ball downfield with Mason Rudolph. Like, you begin to question why they still have Mason Rudolph here, other than, well, he knows the system.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, again, it's the most expensive defense in the league that can't keep a team from scoring 31 points. And there is a weird. If Aaron Rodgers had played in this game, I do think there'd be more like symbolism behind it. Um, what I learned in English class: if you don't know how to pronounce a word, just think of a new word. The symbolism behind Aaron Rodgers was famous for like owning the Bears. Like he would get up in the fans' faces, he'd do the discount double check thing. God, it's so weird to think he used to be like a fun meme on commercials, and now he's like this weird gremlin hiding in a cave, like crafting potions. Um, but um, there is a weird symbolism behind like this sort of like in terms of these 2 historic franchises, the Steelers have represented competency and stability, and the Bears have represented endless futility. There does feel like there's a weird sort of sign of like the Bears just felt like the more adult, mature franchise this game. Got their business done, like next man up, win the
Yeah.
game. Whereas the Steelers, again, they feel like a capsizing boat.
Yeah. The Steelers. I, I think it's. We've talked about it a couple times. I think it's that at this point they either need some drastic player changes or they need some drastic, and like they kind of have that with Rodgers and DK and stuff like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think there it's. I think it's just the whole like Mike Tomlin experience. of we're gonna stay just above 500. We're either gonna win the division or maybe get a playoff spot, and then we're done.
Right.
We'll see you
Well,
in
and
Cancun.
again, yeah, 1, 2, 3 Cancun. Um, I did want to look up the last Steelers because again, I feel like the big discussion over this week and like the coming weeks has been like it feels like the Emperor kind of the like we're realizing the Emperor doesn't have clothes when it comes to the when it comes to Mike Tomlin. It does feel like
Yeah,
the fans really are starting to like
it's
feel the exhaustion from all of this.
yeah.
Um,
I think it's the question of how long do you want to be like a just winning franchise,
and the
and
answer is it feels like we've run our natural course on that.
it does. But also here's the thing, because I feel like a lot of now more than ever, the head coach market is such a crapshoot that it kind of goes back
Mhm.
to the Tyler Lockett conversation we just had of like, would you prefer having an easily playoff caliber team but can't guarantee you'll be able to like get decently far in the playoffs, or do you want a crapshoot coach? Because honestly, like the available coaches market, quote unquote,
Mhm.
I don't see anyone I love that like there's a couple of coordinators that could be like moved around, but like I don't see anyone that's just like, oh, they should pick up like Doug EP at this point. He's not doing anything. It's just like, yeah, no, they're just kind of chilling.
Their last playoff win was a divisional round win against the Kansas City Chiefs in 2016. So the date was January 15th, 2017. I'm just trying to think of the various. Well, here's a fun thing. Do you want to guess what MCU films came out that year?
What year? 2016?
2017. It was the
2017?
2016 season, but because we do the playoffs in
Yeah.
January.
Uh,
Kind of a
so
trio of big ones.
am I thinking of 2017 specifically, or am I thinking of
Yes.
2016?
Think
Um,
2017.
Black
Phase 3.
Panther was that.
No. Good guess
Uh,
though. I believe that was 2018.
Ant Man and Wasp.
No, that was after because Infinity War was
Oh, Infinity War.
2018.
Okay, Infinity War was 2018. So Guardians 2.
Yes, that is one of them. In May 5th was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. There are two
Um,
others, another pair of big ones.
well, hold on. Would you class? No, Deadpool 1 was 2016, I believe.
Well, I'm just counting like
Oh,
canonical
like
MCU pre
MCU.
buyout of Fox, yeah. Because otherwise it just gets too messy. I'm surprised they had 3 films this year, actually.
Ragnarok.
Yes, November 3rd, 2017, Taika Waititi's Thor Ragnarok. There is one more. I will give you a hint. It ties in with Civil War.
It ties in with Civil War, but it is not Civil War, right? Is it Spider
It
Man?
is not. That was 2016. Yes, Spider-Man: Homecoming. That's how long ago the Pittsburgh. I wanted to bring up that one because that is how long ago it was since the Pittsburgh Steelers won a playoff game. Tom Holland had been introduced to Spider-Man, had his first theatrical release as Spider-Man, and since then he has been in like 6 MCU films. Kind of like kind of the bloom came off the rose, quietly rebooted the franchise with No Way Home, and now we are waiting for his fourth entry into the series. He has been Spider Man for almost a decade now.
That feels even crazier than the Steelers.
Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield have come back since the
Yeah.
last time the Pittsburgh Steelers won a playoff game.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Right. Like, it is wild to think about how much history has happened in like the 8-ish, 9-ish years it has taken the Pittsburgh Steelers to win another playoff game.
Hmm.
And at some point, that has to matter. But you're right. It is like if you were going to do it, you kind of needed to do it last year when the pool of coaches was better. It's the problem the
Yeah.
Bills have, where it's like, well, now you can't do it because like the obvious choices would have been Mike Vrabel or Ben Johnson, depending on which way you wanted to go. Now they're gone, And like,
Mike
I don't
Vrabel
know.
was
There's just not
such a great acquisition for Patriots. Just saying.
right. Again, it's like, yeah, it's literally the two platonic ideals of do you want a defensive coach or do you want an offensive coach? Offensive coach, this whiz kid lunatic guru who just sits around thinking up crazy plays, or the defensive coach who's like a no, not who's like a vibes guy, who's like a culture guy. He's a tough taskmaster, but will go to like war for his players. Like truly, the best example of both of like the what you want out of an NFL coach sort of things.
Hmm.
And you missed them because you wanted to give Mike Tomlin another chance and Sean
Yeah.
McDermott another chance. Although I will say, and we'll talk about this on a different episode because we've already been talking for a while, I am kind of more blaming Brandon Beane for this mess than Sean McDermott. I'm more, you know what, Sean, you get one more guy to throw under the bus before we come for your head next.
Yeah.
Like, you thought you ran out of offensive, defensive, and special teams coordinators. Turns out there's one more guy who's looking very shovelable right now. Um, Shall we move on to the lowlights?
Yeah. Um,
The Giants. Oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
Giants can hold their own, but fails at the last minute again.
Yes. Again, another team. It's such a hard balancing line of like feeling motivated, having the fan energy of like, well, we're in all these games, but we're not ruining our draft stock. But also, like, I don't know psychically how long you can take this many games where you lose at the 11th hour.
Yeah.
Like, it's a tough balancing act as a fan because I don't know.
It's
I've weirdly listened to a lot of like Giants fans talk about their team, and like one of the things that someone said that really struck me is like at some point I would like to root for this team. I've been on like
I,
year 7 of like hoping this team is bad enough to get a good draft pick and then maybe get good someday. And at some point, I just need
it,
that to not be how we're doing things.
yeah. This is another team where I think their quarterback situation is perfectly like established and
Hmm.
fine, but they're not like it's like they have so many other weaknesses, especially with like the offensive line and stuff that they could do it. Although this was a very fun game because Jameis Winston
Yes,
just went absolutely nuts, and
right. If you can't
he
be
caught
good,
a
be fun.
touchdown.
Yes, I feel like we only bring this game up because there is a end around reverse. Gunnar Olszewski throws the ball to Jameis. He he has a guy draped on him the entire time, spins around, like stiff
Bullies him.
arms him into the shadow realm, and then runs in for a touchdown.
Yeah,
And it really does underline why the hell were we putting up with Russell Wilson for the start of this year? This could have been the whole year.
yeah. Like I think that's what that I think starting Russell Wilson shot them in the foot because Dart proved to be successful. Jameis is just
Right.
fun. Wilson was just loss after loss. All right, so let's see. Um, I'm trying. What was the first game Dart played? Was it
I believe it was
Chargers?
their fourth game. I believe it was a game after the Cowboys, or 2 games after the Cowboys game. I think they gave Russell one more
Oh yeah,
chance, and it was really bad.
they let Russell start against the Chiefs, but Dart played and showed up. First game
Yes.
he won, and then it's lost by 12 to the Saints, beat the Eagles,
Right.
lost by 1, lost by 18, lost by 10, lost by 4. Like even like this last stretch, lost by 4, lost by 7, lost by 7. Where it's just like these are games that these guys are still like into the end, and they just can't finish.
Right. And that's what's interesting because it's like Jameis Winston could get you these results too, probably, and you would have spared, Dart a lot of wear and tear. And it's like, yeah, it's the glass half full, glass half empty thing as a
Eh,
fan, where it's like, this team that objectively sucks is still in all of these games, but also, like, could we please win football games? Because this was a very gettable game. The Lions were handing them this game, and they just couldn't capitalize. Like,
I
in
think
overtime, it just felt like they couldn't move the ball anymore.
yeah, I think it's yeah. I did question why they picked up Dart so early when they had both Wilson and Winston on the teams at the
Hmm.
time. I was just like,
Hmm.
this is weird. I don't know why they did that. But now it's like it doesn't seem like a blown move. The blown move seems like now of using Russell Wilson at all.
Right. And like again, it's another franchise that kind of has like a legacy status. It really did feel like we're a professional institution, and
Yeah.
Russell Wilson is a professional, like straight-armed quarterback. So like
Looks
we're
at
going to
Cam
play him.
Scadaboo on the bench eating like a tin
Right.
can.
Yeah, he's on a roll. Like someone needs to tell him he can't stream anymore or stream
I,
more, depending on how what direction you want to take the franchise.
I don't know. He's a crazy man. Um,
Um, I would
but
be remiss if I did not. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was gonna say like I feel like this team had a lot of solid pieces, but they released them all in such silly waves of like we can still do this, but also
Mhm.
no, we can't. And it's just like, all
Right.
right, let's start with Russell, and he's gonna throw these garbage passes, and then the time he filled in for Dart for like a couple of snaps, he like dude looked like crap. And then it's like, all right, Dart has an arm, he can sling, but he doesn't have neighbors. And
Right. I do think that's an interesting way to put it. Like the idea of like the pieces are there, but they're not being played correctly. I
and
do think we
yeah,
underrate like in
and like
terms of like it's yeah,
Scat,
this isn't Madden. It's not just about getting talent. It's
yeah,
also like knowing how to run a franchise.
and Scadaboo was just an insane Tasmanian devil, and like yes, his leg injury, real bad, real worrisome, and
Like you can't
like
prepare for
you
that.
can't prepare for that one. But also, it's just like in the world of like hypothetically, if he did not get that against the Eagles, do you think that the Cam Scadaboo difference could make up, for example, the 4 points they lost in the like lost by in the Bears game, or like
Hmm.
enough to leave the Lions out of overtime? Because he is a good running back. We can't deny that.
Hmm.
And
He is.
he just sprints headfirst
I'll eat a
into
little
things.
crow on that.
But it's just like it's like that kind of mentality of
Right.
like
And it's like, yeah,
it's
pivoting to him too late, pivoting to Dart too late, or Winston. Like just the choices his franchise has
you
made
know
turned what could have been a nice, pleasant surprise of a season into a slog.
now that we talk about it like that, yeah, Dable should have been fired.
That's what I was fucking saying. It's like if you go into a season and there is even a 30 to 40% chance you think you're going to have to fire this guy, just do it. Like you know how this is going to end. The one time it'll all work out and all the pieces will come together are grossly outweighed by the other like the 1 out of 10 times. Like it's not worth it to end up with one of the other 9 times where it doesn't work out, and then
Yeah,
you have your running back with a broken ankle, you have your new quarterback with a concussion, and you just kind of wasted a year of everybody's lives. And you wasted a year where it's like this was gettable. Like getting to the playoffs this year was doable. The Lions aren't that great. Like the Lions have like a 50% chance to make the playoffs this year. Like the field's crowded, but it's a field you could have gotten if you just turned like 3 of these games into wins.
yeah, they could have beaten the Giants but lost. I think that one.
Right.
I think that one is a Dart difference. They lost by 1 to the Broncos. They lost.
Hmm.
They could have beaten the Lions and
And
lost. And it's just like, all right, yeah, no, this is
and again,
actually
this
like
isn't
way
like a
more doable than
world-beating
expected.
team.
Yeah,
Right, but they have talent. They have too much talent, and like I do think it's a coaching thing because it's like I do feel like they're not getting the most out of this defensive line. And I think like when you get to the point where when your star defensive end you drafted third overall is watching pornography allegedly in the locker room, like that feels like a leadership problem. Like
yeah.
I still can't believe that's an actual story that happened this year.
I
Um,
I will say with all the like issues of like Sirianni and stuff like and play calling and like Sirianni's still like such like so good on like the locker room and culture vibes that it's just like all right like he's a very winning coach, and like when he goes through rough spots it's like it sucks, but also it's like yeah, this guy's still like really good for the locker room, and like the team
mhm.
loves him.
Right.
Patillo not so
I
much.
do. It is funny. I did spend time with my grandparents for Thanksgiving, who have been literally alive for the entire existence of the Buffalo Bills. And it is funny hearing like my grandpa go off about like, and those Eagles fans who want to fire Sirianni already, are you serious? Like, look around. It is kind of like a look around. Look at
Yeah.
this. Like, just show the video of Dayball losing his shit in the blue tent. Like,
Oh
look at
my god,
this.
that was
This is
awesome.
unacceptable. Um, but I also would be remiss if I did not, while we're here, acknowledge one of my kind of favorite sleeper guys, Wandale Robinson, a a short king, for lack of a better word, receiver on the Giants. I was turned on to this guy last year when someone suggested oh, he's like a big yak guy, reliable hands. A lot of the sort of passing game that would have went to Barkley is going to go to him, and he's currently in the top 10 for receiving yards and touchdowns. I don't know, you got to look for again, I was a Bills fan during the drought. You have to look for positive moments in the sludge. I remember rooting for Jarvis Bird to get the most interceptions a rookie's ever had. I remember patting Kyle Williams on the back for another solid season. You got to find the things to root for, the building blocks of a culture.
Yeah.
um
I think.
are we a little worried? Oh, go ahead.
I think that just the final note is we'll talk about what happens with the Giants in a hot second, but I think this is a team that's just hovering around being like the Steelers, where it's just we could easily be over 500 with the amount of close games and stupid mistakes that we've made. We just don't want. Yeah, we just don't want to. I would hope that they pick up the hottest coach on the market after this season.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. I do think this is, of the jobs that are available and the ones that might be available, I do think this is one of the more appealing ones.
I think this is kind of like last season Patriots, pre-Vrabel Patriots, where it's just is this the hottest team at the moment? No. However, they have a lot of right pieces, so you can it's real easy to take this chicken and turn it into chicken salad.
Exactly. Again, a lot of you have a running back, you have a quarterback, you have some neighbors, right? You have receivers, and you have a defensive line. That's more than a lot of bad franchises have. It should not be this hard to make this team at least a wild card team.
Oh yeah, easily.
Are we a little worried about the Colts? This is probably the game of the week, so I do feel a sort of contractual obligation to bring it up. Contractual obligation. We don't get paid for this. This is for the love of the game, baby. The Kansas City Chiefs end up beating the Colts in overtime, 23-20. Honestly, I think there's two ways you can look at it from a Colts perspective. On one hand, they going up against the Chiefs, who do have this for all the ups and downs, they do have sort of an aura still. They're still one of the better teams in the NFL despite their record. And even though you end up giving up a 20-9 lead going into the fourth quarter, it did feel like you had you felt like you could run with them. You felt like you could stay in this game. Right. But on the other hand, you did blow an 11-point lead. Their first drive, they fumbled the ball, and it's oh wow, the Colts are just going to win this. And your final 4 drives are 3 plays punt, 3 plays punt, 3 plays punt, 3 plays punt. And I'm going to be honest, when you go back and watch some of the plays, it did kind of feel like they were playing scared. The Chiefs did a pretty solid job of boxing up Taylor.
Yeah, they boxed up Taylor, and then they felt nervous.
Yeah, it felt like they didn't have enough faith in Daniel Jones to trust him to go win the game. And for a team that at this point has an inside track to the number 1 seed, that's kind of a problem. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge after this game, it did come out that Daniel Jones has a hairline fracture in his tibia. For those keeping track at home, that is the big bone on your leg, so that's a bit of a red flag.
I thought that was the femur.
Was it the femur? Oh yeah, you're right. It was the femur. Yes,
his fracture's on the tibia, but the femur is a part of his is the big ass bone on your leg.
I'm not you guys are all the doctors. I don't know shit about anything. I'm an art kid. I don't know nothing.
I don't know where. I know where the femur is. I don't know where the tibia is, but I know where the femur is.
All right, well that's fair. But anyway, I do feel like this Colt season is suddenly in a weird space.
I think I think that fracture it might be the book closing on this Cinderella story.
Right, because I am just
Jaguars twice, Texans twice, Seahawks.
I'm telling you, the Texans are going to steal this division.
I mean, I think it depends on Texans versus Jaguars, but Do they play it all
Um,
again? No, they're done playing each other. What?
um,
Wait, no, I can't. I mean, they're done playing each other, but I can't. I clicked on the
well,
Jaguars to
the
look at
biggest
their games,
problem,
and it was like, oh, you want to see Jaguars games? We'll show you all the ones that have happened, but none of the future ones.
right? Oh no, I hate how ESPN organizes the scheduling thing. It's so hard to read for some reason. It shouldn't be hard to make a schedule hard to read. I thought the point of
Yeah.
a schedule is it's supposed to be kind of easy to read. But yeah, also like low key, I actually someone finally brought up Anthony Richardson again, and
He's been chilling on the
I didn't
IR.
realize how bad. Well, yeah, I didn't realize how bad the injury was because when you hear rubber band hits him in the face and like fractures his orbital bone, it sounds too silly to be dangerous. But like
Oh yeah,
they were
that's
worried
what
he was going to
happened.
lose the eye.
I forgot
Like
about
he had to go to
that.
the hospital right after that to make sure he didn't lose the eye. And apparently he has had blurry vision basically until now. And I'm like, oh, so he's just not playing the rest of the year. So you are kind of in a place of like, what do you do?
Yeah,
What do you do? And as
for
we
the
talk
love
about
of
later
God, sit
weeks,
down. Be done.
yeah, yeah, and as we'll talk about later weeks, the solutions might start getting a bit silly. Um, but yeah, this should have been like a positive game of like you were competitive, and despite like maybe being a bit too timid, like this felt like a last year's Chiefs game where like
Yeah.
you psych yourself, the other team psychs itself out, and the Chiefs like pull off some magic. And I guess it's good for the sake of the Chiefs that they do know they can still do that.
Yeah, I think it's a very good upswing of confidence for the Chiefs,
Mhm.
but I think it is still super detrimental to I think it's more detrimental to the Colts.
Right. Um, do you want to talk about the Eagles, or do you spare
Uh,
yourself that?
it was a loss against the Bears that really should not have been
The Cowboys.
oh, Cowboys, sorry. The weeks are blurring together. It was a loss against the Cowboys that shouldn't have been a loss against the Cowboys. It's literally like the same situation for both weeks where
Hmm.
they score 21, they're sitting pretty, and then they just responded to 24 with no answer. Um,
Hmm.
every team has Saquon Barkley's number. Like the dude isn't having a good year, and it's like no surprise why, if I'm being honest, because the Eagles relied on him so heavily last year.
Right. I
But
mean, let's be fair. There is a pretty clear track record of someone running for 2,000 yards and then having an off year. And certainly in
yeah,
the future, they can have good years again. But
oh
the
yeah,
workload it takes, the sheer
his
workload it takes to get to 2,000 yards, it's like, yeah, that carries over.
his career is not done in the slightest. I think the biggest killing factor though is the Eagles had 14 penalties for 96 yards. That is literally a touchdown's worth of yards.
Mhm.
And the bogusness versus non-bogusness of some of these calls is left to discrepancies in my opinion
Right.
of what is offensive pass interference. How much is this a push off? Sometimes the calls it's just like, what are you talking about, ref? And then they show the replay and it's just like, oh yeah, no, he outright did that. But other plays it's just like, dude, this is like if they're hand fighting, which they're allowed to get away with, and then one dude pivots outside and it's just like, pass interference on offense. It's just like he just stopped hand fighting and turned away, and because of the angles his arms out, it's like, yeah, it's stretched out. It's just like,
Hmm.
but it's they
But then
should
you're like,
still,
I feel like the Eagles should beat this team pretty handedly, honestly.
yeah,
And I'm someone who's been pretty complimentary of the Cowboys on this show.
yeah, not me, definitely not me. But it's just one of those. I think that was the real death ends on this team, like this game, is penalties. Because
Right.
regardless of
Yeah.
how like I hate coming in and being like always not. I don't want to say I'm like compensating. That says like, oh yeah, they lost because of penalties. But when you have almost 100 yards worth of penalties yardage, you can theoretically look at it as a free touchdown.
Right. Yeah, and this game came down to a field goal, Frank.
Yeah.
It really is that simple of like, well, the Eagles shot themselves in the foot like 7 straight times, and that's what did it. Yeah, because again, it's like it's so God, it's such an odd
And
team that
yeah, it
well, and also they missed a field goal, but
they did miss a field goal too. I'm mad about that. But yeah, it's just like that kind of like shenanigans is like, yeah, for every like bad call there is still like a call, like a fair call or a call in your favor, where it's just like
mhm.
it's like you still got to be able to like compensate for these calls against. And
Right.
I think stupid penalties is their biggest problem, but it's just they're so predictable this season. Like,
Right. And like that it just feels like such a lazy criticism, but it really is sobering to actually sit down and watch a full game. Again, when you're just red zoning it and you're
yeah,
just seeing bits and pieces of
you
every
don't
team,
you see the
when a team
highlight reels,
complains about their OC, you're like, "Oh, here we go." Like it's always the OC's fault. But
but
then you actually watch the game and you're like, "Wow, it really is just like the same 3 plays over and over
yeah,
again."
and like the Eagles defense for the slump that they've been in have been
Mhm.
very much holding their own and doing
I do
their
think that's the
damn
difference between
best.
this and the last time the wheels kind of came off,
Yeah,
where it's like, well, the defense will at least make you look
the
competent.
last time when they lost to the Buccaneers in round one of the playoffs, it was just no person looks like they knew how to play football anymore. Both sides of the
Mhm.
ball. This time, like it's like the offense can't get it together, but the defense is doing their damned best. Because let's say, all right, so since their first loss to the uh, who's that? The Broncos. They've been like their wins have been 28, 38, 10, 16, and then their losses like they've still been scoring, but they're not getting over like all their losses aren't getting over that like 27 point threshold, with the exception of the Giants, which is kind of funny.
Hmm.
The Giants, they lost 34-17. Like, let's not forget about that. That was when we decided we had to take out Cam Skadda, who scored 3 touchdowns. And once again, I feel like the Giants would be a completely different team if they had the right pieces. The dude scored 3 touchdowns against the
Right.
Eagles
He was the
defensive
third
line.
string running back to start the year.
Um, but it's like the defense is like I said, it's like if 21 to like 27 is that threshold where if you're holding people underneath that, you have a good defense. If people are scoring more than that, like to like the over 25 like and higher consistently, your defense needs a little help. And then the inverse of
Hmm.
if your offense is scoring under that, maybe you should question your offense. If you're going over that, your offense is doing very good. And the Eagles defense has been holding their opponents to that like 21 to 27 threshold of, and it's such a big threshold because it's like above 3 touchdowns but under 4, and miscellaneous field goals and safeties and stuff that happen makes that threshold a little bit bigger than just 3 to 4 touchdowns, because it's not like you can look at the Steelers over the last couple of years. They've won entire games by just scoring nothing but field goals.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, it's
yeah, that's why it's like a relatively fair big threshold.
yeah. I don't know. Like
It's
I
it's
endure you guys dooming and glooming about the Eagles every Sunday these days. It feels like, and I'm just kind of like, all right, but they're
it's
probably the Super Bowl's going to be Chiefs Eagles, and the sooner we
that would
accept
be
that, the better all of our mental
hilarious.
health will be.
I
It'll
I
cause
would
so much
feel
discord in the world that will overthrow the AI, and it'll all be great.
so bad if the like I wouldn't feel bad if the Eagles make the Super Bowl,
Mhm.
because I'm a fan. But outside perspective, I would feel bad. But if this game is fucking Eagles Chiefs again, I would be upset for like every other team. Like, yes, Eagles are in the like Super Bowl. Obviously, that's good. But like, you just go unbiased. It's like, while the Eagles still have like, both teams shouldn't have room to talk of being in the Super Bowl compared to some of these other teams out here, like Packers, Bears, Seahawks, Rams, Patriots, Broncos, Texans. I'm still throwing Texans name in the ring.
Mhm.
Um,
Right. The year where it feels like literally anyone could win the Super Bowl.
and
And
if it's a repeat for like the
yeah.
third, especially like back to back years and the third time in like the last
Yeah.
five, it would
I mean, that's basically how sports
I would
parody
hate that.
feels like sometimes. I mean, the NBA has finally gotten out of that, but that's only because something happens to the championship team every year.
Yeah,
Like Jason Tatum pops his Achilles, like Jamal Murray on the Denver Nuggets, his knee is all like fucked up. Like, there's excuses for why we haven't had too many repeats post Golden State, that era where it was just Golden State and
it was
whoever
Golden State,
LeBron
and
was
then
playing
yeah,
for.
I don't
But yeah, that would be so
I don't
funny.
follow basketball that much, but I know that for a fact of just like, yeah, that was a thing.
Right. Right. You understand there was an 8-year period where it was just LeBron James up against someone in the finals, which I'm sorry, that's
Yeah,
still a top 5. I don't care that he didn't win the majority of them. There's reasons for that. It is like insane that someone was able to do that. I'm
yeah,
sorry. Sue me. I did get a little sad. And like I know we're talking long here for a off week, but like I am a little sad because I didn't realize when we were playing Root the other day, like LeBron was in Philly. It might be his last game ever playing in Philly, and he actually played really well. He kind of like stunted on him. So I've kind of made it a priority that when the Lakers come back to the East Coast to play back to backs against the Knicks and the Nets, I gotta get tickets to one of those. I did.
you
I will.
gotta.
On the edge of spare no expense territory. I will save whatever Christmas and birthday money I have to because it's like, oh no, it's actually starting to feel like this might be the last dance.
Yeah,
Although knowing LeBron, he would probably announce it before the season
I
starts,
think
so he can have the like
I
Derek
think he
Jeter,
would have
Mariano
a
Rivera like tour, where like
yeah.
people gift him thing when it's like, oh, this is your last time in Wells Fargo. Here's a fucking Liberty Bell.
I think
You could hear it's the real it's the real one. It's the one from the 1700s. Here,
yeah. I think he would do like he's good enough, and he's been like so
he's
dominant
enough
enough
of a
that he's
yeah,
enough a name that it's like no.
and knowing
The
his like love of controlling the narrative.
Yeah, him having a retirement tour, especially with Bronny and stuff, is one of those things that it's just like it's gonna make so much money that like he's got to have a slice of merchandise sales for his
Oh
gear,
yeah.
that it's just gonna make
Right. He's
so
gonna
much
have a whole
money.
like
He's gonna
yeah, he'll have a whole swan song merch line. Like him
yeah.
and Nike will cook something up.
No,
Um
he's got like yeah. There's I think too much money on the line. Plus, it's just a nice. It is I don't like retirement tours, but I also like them and when they are such long-standing members of just like yeah, you're good enough that it's like you can do the same with like Jeter, where it's just like yeah, you having like moments and just like a full like retirement tour, I'll allow at John Cena.
yeah. Right. Like especially like because Kobe did a sort of like an end tour, but at that point his body was so shot. It was kind
Yeah,
of a bummer. Well, I don't particularly care about Kobe, but it was kind of like a bummer to be
it
like,
is.
one of the staples of the sport, it's like he's not very good anymore. Where I do think LeBron is very cognizant of like he's clearly lost a step. This is the first time it's really felt like he's lost
That
a step,
is
and I do think that's going to factor into decisions going forward.
That is my problem with Brandon Graham coming back to play for the Eagles is the fact that
I forgot.
well, I mean that happened, and he hasn't been playing like a crazy amount of snaps because he doesn't really need to. But
Right.
that is my problem with where it's just like you ended on top, you ended good. I don't want to see you play and just feel sorry for you as you're playing. Like it's a huge problem in professional wrestling where there's just people that don't know when to quit or
Right.
don't have the funds to quit. And it's just like
Right.
you're watching these guys just like old man matchups and stuff like that, and it's just like you feel sorry for them, like like going out doing guest appearances and stuff. It's just like, yeah, that'll get hype, but it's like watching like a 70-year-old man like be in the ring and not in like a guest slot. It's just like,
Mm.
oof.
Well,
This,
boxing's the worst for that.
yeah,
No one
boxing's
ever
bad with
talks
that too.
about when, yeah, no one ever talks about when Ali came back and they did like a whole documentary like the comeback, and it's like it's very clear this man already has Parkinson's. This is actually
Yeah, he's done.
irresponsible.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Anyway, speaking of
uh,
being done,
washed. Yeah,
um,
being washed. Chad, are we cooked? The New York Giants. Do you have any
first,
other thoughts you wanted to add?
yeah, they're our first eliminated team.
Really?
Week 12, New York Giants eliminated.
God, that's brutal. You never want to be the first.
Yeah,
I could have
being
sworn. Well, the Browns because the division's weird.
yeah, Browns,
Oh.
Cardinals, Washington, they're all in this weird zone of like we're not so bad.
Mhm.
Um like that's pretty much it. We're it's like, yeah, we're not so bad. Um and there's some bullshit of like technically if the rest of my division loses out, we win. Um
Right.
we can win some things.
Right. I will say we did largely discuss how we feel about this team going forward, and just to reiterate, it's like I do think like this is not a hopeless situation. I think their two priorities have to be offensive line and wide receiver help. Like, and then it does just come down to like, you know, finding the right coach. Honestly, like I haven't really researched I haven't particularly researched the what's the word? The college pool of options, so I'm not too sure. There's a lot of talk about Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator for the Bills, looking for a new job. Honestly, Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks, I think he could be a sleeper pick because the Seahawks offense has been at its best has been super dynamic this year, and I do think a lot of teams will be like, well, if he's doing that with Sam Darnold, our quarterback is better than Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
We want that. I think that actually would be a very fun combining Dart's athleticism with like basically putting Neighbors in the JSN role. I think that could be really really fun. That's kind of my like just off the top of my head. I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, I think they just need to get their house in order.
Hmm.
Figure out who
Yeah. It.
figure out who they want coaching. You have plenty of time.
Hmm.
Figure out who you want coaching, being smart with your draft picks, especially your earlier draft picks. I think you can really turn things around very quickly. Um, the the team is, I would say, enticing for an up and coming coach or a transfer
Right.
coach. Uh, yeah. So I think that could be fun. And
Right. Our notable note, question of the week. This is a fun one. What is your ideal matchup for a Dallas game, a Detroit game, and a free choice game
for like
for
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving?
Uh,
Oof. I want to hear your choices because I need to ponder this.
so I feel like they did, they have it planned out right next for like Thanksgiving week of
Hmm.
Detroit versus Green Bay. Like I love a good divisional matchup, but it's got to be a competitive divisional match. For example, if Dallas like this year, if Dallas played the Giants, who are already eliminated, it's just like, eh, we might not get our bang for the buck out of this one.
Hmm.
Um,
Right. That's a tricky way to look at it.
but I think Green Bay versus Detroit is like a very right choice. I would like to see Dallas against somebody like the 49ers actually. Not for like
Hmm.
quality, but for like this level of like nostalgia adjacent of like, yeah, like
Mm.
early 2000s, late 90s and earlier, Cowboys versus the 49ers is like a juggernaut matchup.
Right.
So that
Yeah.
it's like that kind of pull.
I guess my question is, are you doing it based off this season alone or just
No,
broad in
just
general?
broad in
Okay,
general.
that's helpful. Yeah. Yeah, I do think that is for
I'm
Detroit
I'm
because of
basing
Dallas
it
and
off
Detroit.
of like not basing it off of these teams like this year team specifically, but like this iteration. So like Dallas hasn't changed that much between this year, last year, year before, etc. So it's
Yeah.
just like it's like this kind of like Dak Prescott and this Jared Goff like regimes.
That's fair. Yeah, I do think that is the big thing. I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of like nostalgia. These should be legacy matchups, not necessarily direct rivalries, though that's
No,
often very helpful. But it should be like, hey,
like a
this is a
Dallas
matchup that
Bills
has a lot
game.
of history. Yes. Well, that was like the coming out game for Josh Allen. There's like a quarterback sneak. It's like Thanksgiving. We kind of whooped him. Josh Allen tries to quarterback sneak it, fumbles it, manages to pick it up, and then twirl for like 5 yards. And that was like, okay, we got a guy. That was
Mm-hmm.
like our first primetime game in forever. But like that's exactly the right matchup where you're like, we can invoke history on this. We can talk about the different times these teams have met up. Um, I think to that end, I would I would probably say if I could pick one team for Dallas to go up against, I almost would want to say something like Chicago. Again, another like old guard NFC franchise. Detroit, there's so many different options. I almost like again, and I'm not even thinking necessarily like I want them to be good games, but I'm willing to bend that for the
I
sake of like narrative and history. Like
yeah,
Washington would be a sneaky good pick
I
in
w-
terms of like at
Washington
one
was in
point
my
Washington was the biggest team in the sport.
Washington was in my like Rolodex for the Dallas game as like a pitch, but that's because
Mhm.
they played each other years ago on Thanksgiving, and I made yes, the story of Thanksgiving, the Cowboys versus the Indians.
Oh God. Come on.
It was right
But
there. It
like,
was a softball. They were still the Redskins at the time.
oh my God, God, they're gonna end up. Well, that'll be the real sign about which way our politics are going if they somehow do end up back calling themselves that. Um, but honestly, the Vikings are a stealth team because it's like, yeah, the Vikings, they're one of the oldest teams
Yeah.
in the NFL. They have a lot of interesting history. Yeah, like if I was going to, excuse me, if I was going to pick like four random teams who I think would be good matchups for Detroit and Dallas because I'm kind of putting them both together because I feel like they have a lot of the same ops, as it
Yeah.
were. Um, I would say Chicago, Washington, Minnesota, and I almost want to say Denver. I don't. Is
I
Denver like I want one AFL team. Like I want AFL teams to be an option too.
I like Denver. I would swap Minnesota for Green Bay personally, but I
That's
do
fair.
like your list.
Yeah, they feel like they belong on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and then a free choice game. I have already broken the rules to my own question with what I thought of, so I want you to say what like it's literally just any matchup you can pick.
I want whatever. For me, it's always whatever the most interesting divisional matchup
Okay.
should be on paper. So like a Seahawks 49ers, a Seahawks Rams, a Bills Patriots. That's like when it's like, okay, Dallas and Detroit are here because of history and like contractual agreement. Now let's get like now let's get the game that's going to decide how the direction of the rest of the year goes.
Yep. All right, here's mine because I've already once again broken the mold and also live in a world of too much football. So, get ready for this thought process, Chief. So, uh, I don't remember if they switch up the order of the games, but it
Mhm.
was Detroit first, then Dallas, then the free choice game. If that in the
Right.
world of situations, this free choice game, 8 o'clock, 8:20, whatever game, all on Thanksgiving, people are full, people are going home, people are drinking heavily, whatever. Scrap a modern game. Play back a major game from years past. I'm
Oh,
talking
I like that a
I'm talking
lot.
like 90s and 80s Super Bowls. I'm talking grudge matches where if the player, like, people would die from the amount of penalty flags being thrown in modern day. Ray Lewis games, just your belly's full of turkey. You've had some bevs, possibly. Um, People are getting a little sleepy. People are traveling. What a better way to kind of close out the night with what is like some of what is regarded as the best NFL games of all time. Just playbacks, full commentary, because you know they have this shit on file, right?
Hmm. Oh, absolutely. NFL Films is a huge institution. The NFL
Yeah,
does, for all of its faults, it does take its history pretty seriously in
yeah,
terms of like, we need to archive as much of this as we can.
yeah. Like a pitch, if you will. You're just chilling, your belly's full, you're hanging back, and then it's just like, all right, cool. I'm a little sleepy. Gonna sit here watch like football and stuff, and then it's just like, oh yeah, that's the end of the Dallas game. Cowboys lost because this is Kevin's memory. Um, and it's like, stick around. The final game of the night on NBC, which by the way, they were 100% throwing up Sunday Night Football images
Oh, yeah.
um,
Huh. That
on
is
that
weird.
Thursday night. But it's like we're gonna end it up with Tom Brady's first Super Bowl win, or like when the giant like Eli dethroned the crazy Patriots, and it's just like, oh shit, like Eli stopping the undefeated season in the Super Bowl. All right, like I don't have to watch this game, but I can hunker down and just be like, yeah, this could be fun. I
Honestly,
know
this is
how it
one of your
goes.
best ideas.
Yeah, you know how it goes, so your commitment to watching it, preventing you from traveling and stuff like that,
Hmm.
isn't there, but it's still like good family fun. And then it's just like I don't want to tug on your heartstrings individually, but just imagine your dad just being like, "Ah, Carter, come here. We're going to watch this crazy old like 1980s Bills game together." And just like
Right.
and then you doing that like for example, like you just being like a generation from now, like in the world, if you have a child where it's just like, just imagine post Thanksgiving dinner and you just go, you there, Carter Jr. or CJ, as I'll call you, come sit down next to me.
Jesus.
We're gonna we're gonna watch Josh Allen versus the Ravens in this snow game where Josh Allen is going to be a fucking superhero.
Hmm.
You got the
Yeah,
family
honestly, that is
wholesomeness. You got
right. That is, that's genuinely beautiful. You son of a bitch, you got me. But yeah, no, because like so much of my dad's watching habits at the end were just like we just would put on old games because we're like, well, we watched most of the interesting stuff on Netflix, so
yeah,
what if we what if we just watch, because then again, NFL Films has all of this. They have them
yeah,
curated. I do think this is a missing opportunity because I do feel like for all the NFL's interest in bringing in old viewers or new viewers, I do feel like they would benefit more from like showing off the history of the sport more than just like the endless hot takes discourse of current games. I
yeah.
think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I think I love how I wrote this down with the intention of just being like, all right, let's put in some like let's find some divisional matchup, and then the second we just started discussing it, I had this idea, and I'm like, nah, scrap my bullshit for my other
Hmm.
bullshit. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
no,
think
I'm a big fan.
NFL hire me.
Hell yeah. Um,
Kevin, the schedule guy, has to like you need to do something with him because I got some banger ideas. Anyway, speaking of like Thanksgiving, let's talk about next week. There's no buys because
yes.
it's Thanksgiving weekend, which just a hint
Pretty
too
good
much of
lineup of
football.
Thanksgiving games.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
too
hate
much
it.
football.
We have Green Bay versus Detroit, which is one of the biggest games of the week. Uh, Absolutely fighting for the number one seed in that division in this game,
Hmm.
as well as the next one, as well as one of the other ones. But talk about that in a second. And then we have Kansas City versus the Cowboys. Once again, Cowboys versus Indians. Um, I kind of
It
like
is,
this.
again,
This is
it's so
this.
incredible how both the NB or the MLB and NFL have names that are kind of racist still, but because they weren't like literal red face,
Yeah,
they get away with them.
but
It's
yeah,
actually kind of
it's a little
magical when you
crazy.
stop and think about it.
I think this is a very fun matchup. As much as I don't like both teams of Dallas versus Kansas City,
Hmm.
you have like the most dominant team of this decade versus the most dominant team of like 2 decades ago, and everybody still thinks they have it at America's team. Um, uh, they're very even in qualities. I think it's a very fun matchup, and then ending with a nice divisional round of Cincinnati versus the Ravens with Joe Burrow.
Yes, I think there is a whisper that they're going to try and get him back for this game.
Um, yeah, so that's also just crazy fun, crazy talented, and that's a solid like night game to chill to. It's not as good as my sleepy time idea of nostalgia, old school football, and Black Friday morning, all the kids are being like, "Did you watch that game with Ray Lewis? I bet I could hit you with it like that." And then hospitals are gonna make $1 gazillion.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Um, but yeah, this is kind of the ideal matchup of like two teams scrapping. Honestly, all these matchups are really good in terms of scrapping for divisional placement.
Yeah,
Obviously, the Cowboys and the Chiefs aren't
Cowboys
in
and
the same
Chiefs are
division,
more for their own
but both of
divisions.
them, yeah, both of them like actually seem to have like a path to getting their division and kind of need this game to like stay alive on that front.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think they did a really good job this year, frankly.
it's
I don't have
it's
anything
it's an
sophisticated to say
impressive.
about it.
It's impressive how well this lined up with all these seasons these teams have had.
Hmm.
Um, where it's one
Where
of
the
those.
narratives feel very similar.
Yeah, it's like Green Bay and Detroit making the season list or making the games list this season. It's like, yeah, this will probably hold up. But Kansas City and Dallas, and then Baltimore and Cincinnati, with just the rough starts that all these teams have had for the beginning of the season, where they had like a combined total of like 4 wins at the beginning of October between these 4 teams or something like that.
Oof,
It's
right.
like you think about that, it's just like, oh man, this is impossible. But it balanced out very nicely. Other
Right,
biggest game
right.
of the week is Chicago versus Philly. As much as I don't like front running, but it is the Black Friday game. We're
Oh,
hovering
right. I
around too
forgot we
much
were doing
football,
that.
but
Oof.
it is a game like it's a possible leadership game of the division, and with between those two and LA just sitting on the outside of them, looking in, not because of like they're worried or anything like that. It's just like, oh, we're in this same exact conversation, like Chicago, Philly, and the Rams, where it's just like one of us slips, or like two of us slip, the last one's got the lead. So they're all hovering around each other, waiting for someone to screw up.
Right. There is a logjam for the number one seed. Like compared to the AFC, where there's only really two teams who have a real good shot at it at this point, there's a logjam of like four teams who all have a reasonable shot to get the number one seed. And this is one of those games that will absolutely come back to like
Yeah,
decide it.
yeah. And speaking of deciding things, my don't sleep on game, Houston versus Indiana or Indianapolis.
Ooh,
Of
Indiana.
Indiana,
Yes,
I think
kind
Indiana
of
does
a
it.
huge one. With
Um,
blood in the water, like this actually could get Houston the division.
yeah, blood in the water from Indianapolis. and Houston having seemingly worked out a lot of their like any defensive flaws they had. I don't want to say they had
Mhm.
problems because they didn't. Their defense has been strong all season, but any flaws that I think this is a must win for both teams if Houston wants to stay in the conversation of playoffs, and
Mhm.
Indianapolis. I don't know why I just want to say Indiana, but the Colts, like hovering around from falling, especially with this Danny Dimes injury.
Right, right. Yeah, it is going to be a big test for them because if there was going to be a game where you have a quarterback with a slightly injured leg going out there, this was not the
Not a
one to
good
do it.
choice.
Right. So, like, they are really going to, it's really going to have to sort of be an all hands on deck situation to keep the season afloat. They are going to have to really hope that their offensive line and their run game can really carry them through a couple weeks here, particularly against this game after what we saw just happen to Buffalo.
Yeah.
And my game is the New York Jets versus Atlanta. Atlanta is kind of quietly having the season from hell now. Both of these teams are now on their backup quarterbacks. And while I don't think either of these teams have playoff considerations in the cards right now, it will be a big game to decide sort of the direction of both franchises. Obviously, the Jets are on a first year coach, but like we've seen teams give up on first year coaches before. Meanwhile, Raheem Morris has been the Atlanta Falcons coach for a couple years now with no meaningful sign of progress. I do. There's a question of why. Like again, there's no relegation in the NFL. Like, how do you justify these games? How do you justify like having all of these quote unquote meaningless games? And it's like, yeah, because these are the games that decide people's jobs and careers.
Yeah.
Like this decides like. It's a test of mental toughness. It's a test of competency. It's
It would
a
decide
test.
relegation if that was a thing.
Right. It would decide relegation. And the relegation here is do the people who are in charge of this organization get to keep their jobs?
Yeah.
Um,
And that's kind of
yes,
where we're at.
a weird game. Yeah, it's a weird game, but it's an interesting one in my
I
mind.
don't I don't hate it actually. It feels like two teams at the same like same exact caliber, which is like an important factor to me
Mhm.
cuz
Shall we wrap it up for the. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say cuz like one-sided matchups are aren't
Mhm.
fun.
Right. I do think if the Falcons lose this game, there's going to be a lot of really unpleasant conversations because this was, again, they put the chips in for this year,
They really did.
and now there are no chips. And
Yeah.
also, we lost to the Jets.
Yeah. The team that took the longest to get a win. Anyway, let's send them home, Carter.
Thank you all for watching. I hope you're getting ready for Thanksgiving. I hope you've remembered that the best thing you can do is keep your turkey in the freezer until the 11th hour and then put it in the boiling oil. I hope you make sure you go to the store on Thanksgiving to know what it feels like to feel alive. And I just hope you have a restful, happy season. Thank you all for listening.
I don't condone what Carter said.